Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. One of the ongoing issues during and since the pandemic is trying to get things done in a timely manner. If you are trying to build something or trying to get a repair done, you have likely experienced delay after delay. Some of those were supply issues, and others were simply trying to find someone to do the work. The prophet Haggai could relate. This week we are moving through the last 5 books of the Old Testament, and since we don't often turn to these books, I'm introducing these prophets who we find there. Today, we will look at one of them you might never have read from before, Haggai. So far this week, as we have looked at the prophets, I've given you some time ranges when we think this or that prophet preached. Haggai is unusual because we know very specifically when he preached. Haggai preached his message in 4 different sermons beginning August 29th and culminating on December 18th in the year 520 BC. It was a significant time, and 2 things had happened. We have talked numerous times and even earlier this week about Babylon and how they had destroyed Jerusalem and took the people off into exile. They were there for 70 years. After that time, Babylon itself was conquered by the Persians, and the new Persian king allowed the Jews to return to Israel and to Jerusalem. In fact, to help them, he appointed a man named Nehemiah, who has his own book in the Bible, to serve as the governor and oversee the rebuilding of Jerusalem, and he appointed Ezra, who also has a book in the Bible, to oversee the rebuilding of the Jewish faith and culture. Those efforts had begun and were underway, except, well, you might know that when the Babylonians took the people into exile, they took the upper crust of society. They left behind some of the people who might have been considered lower class society. Those who remained behind eventually started marrying local Canaanite women, even though the Bible said not to. And since Jerusalem was destroyed, they moved the center for worship to a mountain in Samaria away from Jerusalem. These intermarried people who worshipped somewhere else were called Samaritans. And when true Israel returned from exile, relations between the 2 groups did not go well. Samaritans thought the Israelites perceived themselves as better than them, and Israel saw the Samaritans as half-breed second cousins who violated God's rule about intermarriage. All this conflict brought about an interruption in the work to rebuild Jerusalem. In fact, work stopped for 18 years as the conflict with the Samaritans played out. And that's when Haggai began to prophesy that the work of the temple needed to recommence and to be completed. He didn't say this out of a sense of nationalism, however. Rather, Haggai saw the completion of the temple, which, by the way, would be more awesome than the first one that had been destroyed. He saw the completion of the temple would do 2 important things. It would be a significant step in restoring true faith in God among the people, and perhaps even more importantly, it would prepare things for the Messiah to come. When the temple was completed, Haggai saw that God's blessings would come on them, and the conflicts would cease, and Israel would once again be a shining light to the nations. Tomorrow we will consider Zechariah, who was a contemporary to Haggai and who helped Haggai urge the completion of the temple. Maybe one of the messages of Haggai is that faith moves toward action. You can talk the talk all you want, but you need to walk the walk. Faith in God isn't just a concept, it's action. In Haggai's case, it was to complete the temple. In our case, it might be to care for the poor, the outcast, the immigrant, the sick, the forgotten, and all who are on the margins of society. In our case, it might be to work for understanding instead of fear among different peoples. In our case, it might be to live love instead of just talk about it. Haggai urges us to be God-centered. Haggai urges us to action. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.